Everyone loves a big payday, but loving a payroll provider, that's a little bit weird. Yet all across the country, business owners are loving doing payroll with Gusto. Gusto is easy, simple to use, plus it does all your W-2s, which is huge, so they never have to be late again. That has happened to me once before. And they even have HR support that's a phone call away, which I also know small business owners need times a million. It's modern, easy, typically only takes about 11 minutes to actually run payroll, so it's efficient also. Plus, they're giving you a 3-month free trial as soon as you run your first payroll with them. So just go to gusto.com/EM so you can experience it for yourself.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and today on the show we have Rock Thomas. He has an amazing name. You're always going to remember his URL at rockthomas.com. He also has had 6 award-winning RE/MAX franchises, plus is a serial entrepreneur, plus has a whole coaching amazing mastermind. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I'm stoked to be here. I just love what you're doing.
Well, it sounds like we do very, very similar things. So tell me what your mission is in life is, because apparently it's very similar to mine. So please.
You know, I've had several different missions. People are like, how do you find your purpose? And I think that it changes a lot over time. The most recent purpose that I found was when I was around 50. I'm 56 now, which is to help other people basically get out of the rat race by creating passive income vehicles without giving up their health or their relationships. So we call it the whole life millionaire. And the journey to becoming a 100%er, which means that 100% of your fixed expenses are covered by money that comes in while you're sleeping. And then in that process, what we discovered is all people's limiting beliefs and their trauma from their childhood come to the surface. And that's when I rub my hands together and I get to deal with that. So we kind of trick people saying, hey, we're going to help you become a millionaire, and then we get to work on the good stuff.
And everyone right now is going, ooh, I absolutely love that. Because that's sort of the whole premise of the show, too. It's about the whole life side of things. So how did you come to that? Tell me a little bit about your story and why you pay so much attention to the whole life piece and not just the money.
Well, my father died of cancer when I was in my late 20s, and I took 2 years to take care of him, and I lost what was by then 20 years of hard work. I'd built up 3 properties. I had a relationship, a young kid, lost it all, ended up back on, I know it sounds so cliche, on my mother's couch in debt. But my father was good at making money. He was terrible at managing it. So he had huge government debt, and he commissioned or taxed me with the job of paying it off so that his wife wouldn't have to worry about that. So I learned a lot about mismanagement of money, about making it is not the answer. It's about making it, managing it, and investing it. It's about having a money blueprint that you're aware of. And because he died of cancer and colon cancer, I started to study health, and I realized that there's essentially 3 things you need to take care of. One is you need to exercise, move your body. Our bodies are meant to move. Number 2 is what you put in your body is going to determine a lot what your body has to do to process it. So I eat really, really healthy. And the third thing is your attitude. If you are negative, cranky, upset, pissed off, bitter, you create acid in your body, which kills and attacks cells, which creates cancer. So I thought, well, learning all of that at a very high price, which was the loss of my father and the loss of basically everything I had built up, I might as well use that lesson to teach other people that there's a better way, and they don't teach it in school. And I've learned through my experience. And so pain often breeds passion, and that's really where it came from.
I love this. Okay, because one of the things that we don't talk a ton about is how much health really impacts your business. And I'm a business coach too, right? So I know when you actually look at the background of everything, the business can be okay, but when you actually pay attention to the background, if they're not feeling okay, their business isn't okay. And I know it's hard because we usually try and separate the two. Well, it's totally different. I'm on the entrepreneur diet. I eat whenever I possibly can. So can you give us some tips on how to manage that when we already feel so overfull in a schedule that we can't predict?
Yeah. So I always think of tools. What is the tool that will create the transformation? Because information's everywhere. You could just Google, what do successful people do? Well, they get in the gym and they work out, but that doesn't help you because your story is, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. So the tools we use is, what's your morning routine and what's your evening routine? And on Sundays, we have a system where you take 90 minutes to plan your week, which might include filling your car up with gas, resourcing all the things you need. And in some cases, it's making 8 salads in Tupperware with your salmon and your chicken or whatever you want. That's what I would do, so that you're not hangry during the week. You're not, as an entrepreneur, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon racing out to McDonald's, spending money, eating poorly, and wasting time. So we have lots of little tactics that give people what I call the edge. And your morning routine is designed to agitate the cells of your body and your mind in a positive way, to stir up, to prime, to get you set for the battle of the day, to bring all of you forward. And there's different methodologies we use for that: meditation, movement, journaling, reading, incantations, affirmations, to set the tone. We all hold a thought in our mind, and if it's held long enough with enough energy, it gets deposited into the filing cabinet called your unconscious mind. I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I'm lazy, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time. It becomes your identity, and then you live into that. So we teach people methodologies to hold a better thought, a better concept, a better vision, to redefine who they are. I'm a whole life millionaire. What does that look like? Describe it, hold it in your thought, talk about it with other people that support you, and then shift who you are over time and create a new result.
Sounds so cliche, right? Everyone's like, of course, it's the foundational stuff. We're supposed to eat, we're supposed to exercise. But are you actually doing it, people, right now? Because no offense, I talk to a lot of you, right? And so I want you to really, really open your eyes. We just had Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning. I'm sure you probably know him, back on the show. He's a very good friend of mine that lives here in Austin. So he talks all about that. So when we're moving into the trying to stick with it, right? Because Hal will leave a UFC fight before the main event so he can go to sleep. I'm not going to do that, unfortunately. Right. I want to see the whole event, to not wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So how do we actually, or your people, how do they actually figure out what their morning routine is?
Yeah, so Hal's a good friend of mine, and he's, been a cornerstone of some of the teachings that we have. We teach people the Miracle Morning. I learned a lot from Tony Robbins before knowing Hal about the hour of power and priming, but they're essentially a lot of the same concepts. And I think that the piece that Hal talks about that most people, I think, gloss over is what I would call visualization. And most people visualize things in a negative way. It's called worry.
Yep.
They think about all the things they don't want to have happen. I don't want to get stuck in traffic. I don't want to work for a boss that sucks. I don't want to have the contract not work out. I don't want to not make love tonight. So what you focus on, it becomes your world. So the power of visualization is to start to think, get clear on what's important to you. And as you do that, you start to attract it to yourself. And that is so, again, cliche, subtle, that for the individual that isn't a hungry learner, see, most people that I know, like yourself, myself, Hal, and people like Tony Robbins, they look for the distinction. They look for the quarter-inch turn. They look for the little thing that most people don't notice. I remember sitting beside Tony Robbins when we were listening to Deepak Chopra at a very private event that I was part of. He signed up for his platinum partner. And he was sitting there beside me, like literally right beside me, tearing up the papers, writing notes while Deepak was talking. And I was taking notes, and I consider myself a great student, but I'm looking at him and I'm like, what am I missing? Like, why is he so passionate about this? And I had a chance to talk to him one-on-one afterwards. And I said, Tony, I've heard you teach what Deepak was talking about. Like, you know that already. And I said, what was going on? You were like tearing pages. I don't think you give me write it. You just were writing so fast. Read it, I mean. And he says, Rock, when I listen to a speaker, he says, I'm looking for a distinction, a nuance, something that I didn't capture before, so I can take it, bring it into the cells of my body, and then share it with other people and change their life. And I looked at him and I went, that's freaking awesome. And I think that most people, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, morning routine, visualization. Yeah, I know that. Not going to work. You got to go like, oh, my God, are you kidding? Visualization? Okay, I'm going to take a meditation. I commit to it. I'm going to tell 10 people. I'm going to do it for the next 30 days, whatever it is. And I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to buy all in. And that's what creates transformation. But most people, they don't get excited about life because they're brainwashed to live a very mediocre, safe life.
You do a very good Tony Robbins impression, just as a side note. So what I want to bring up, though, is because we are preconditioned, like you're saying. And so one of the interesting things as a coach, too, is you can notice trauma in the past, right? I even recommend trauma coaches, especially when you bump up against something and you're like, okay, this is something that you need to talk to somebody about, that, or therapy or whatever. So how do you understand where that line is of like, hey, they're moving along in their business. This is a pre-patterned thing that's stopping them?
So I'm a Tony Robbins trainer. I've done 74 events with Tony. And one thing that I learned there was the 7 master steps of change. And one of the things that neurologically works for transforming trauma, and I also agree with you, I send people to Landmark, and I believe that you need to work with experts in certain areas because, again, if you had trauma can be described as a surge of energy that your system can't handle, and it breaks stuff inside. And then every time you go back to something similar, your system's broken. It notices that and it goes, I'm alone in a room with a man. Last time that happened, I got raped. Emergency lights, I can't function, I freak out. Or whatever the case may be. I was asked to stand up in front of my class at 5 years old, and they laughed at me because my fly was open, and now I never want to do public speaking again. So these things happen. So what I do is I use the technology in neuroplasticity or neuroscience, which is breaking people's pattern and replacing and uploading a new pattern. So sometimes you have to visit it and you have to let people go through the shame and the anger and that process. But sometimes you can just upload a new experience, change the meaning of that event. So let's say somebody, I don't know, got a flat tire and they missed a really important appointment. Well, you can change that experience by saying, next time you get a flat tire, put the music up and dance like it's 1999 and change the meaning of that experience because that old experience actually is dead and gone. You're just replaying it. And that's the technique that I use.
Do you have any examples of this too? Because what I've found is that it's actually smaller things. It's not like crazy nutso things that you remember that you feel like you were traumatized from. It's like small little things where you're like, and it comes up as you're going through and building your business, as you know, right? You start pushing them forward and it's like, oh, wait, there's little small things. How do you figure those out? Or do you have any examples of how people can really go through that?
Yes. Mel Robbins, right?
Yeah.
5, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
go. I think that it's 10 seconds of courage that changes your life. I'll give you a small and a big example. A small one is you're standing in line at Starbucks and you want to say hello to the person in front of you, give them a compliment or something, but you think, okay, I'm going to look weird. Or you're at the gym and you want to say something to somebody, my God, you look really awesome. I love your biceps or whatever it is. Like I have those feelings like that guy is killing it. Like I just want to give the guy a high five, but he's got his earplugs in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come across. He won't hear me. It's going to look weird, whatever. So I stop. So I think that moment, right, there's an opening, that 10 seconds of courage, say yes, figure it out later, just take action. So we can do those little things. The bigger thing is something like when I was younger, my brother called me pizza face because I had a lot of acne. And his goal was to make himself feel better and bigger. He was shorter than me, and so he wanted to bring me down and make himself feel better. So he chipped away at me. Well, the problem is that I repeated pizza face to myself thousands of times. He suggested it. I repeated it. I looked in the mirror every day for a good 20 years. And I thought, I'm ugly. Nobody likes me. They're laughing at me. They're looking at my face thinking that's disgusting. And I built a mountain out of a molehill. So I learned that labels are just suggestions and that if you're willing to, you can change them. So let's say that your parents suggested to you, oh, you know what? She's shy. Jamie's shy because one day you didn't say anything when introduced to some people. You were pissed off because you didn't have your favorite dress on. I don't know. But, she says you're shy and you're like, shy? What is shy? And then you learn what shy is and you go, well, mommy said I'm shy, so I guess I just won't talk. And you develop that label, but you're not really shy. So I went from pizza face to choosing an example of somebody that I admired, Clint Eastwood, changed the label, and I went from pizza face to ruggedly handsome.
That's awesome.
And that became my new identity. And I wrote a book called The Power of Your Identity because of the evolution. I went from working hard to working smart. I went from carpenter to salesperson. So you can choose any new label. And if you're willing to just pour the energy through your visualization, your incantations, your affirmations, your journaling, you're experiencing it with yourself, you're romancing a new part of yourself. You can go from being boring to funny. You can go to whatever you want if you're willing to invest in uploading new software. And that's really a big part of what I teach. You go from being somebody who's an employee to an entrepreneur and a whole life millionaire. But if you don't redefine yourself on the inside, Jamie, you'll never change on the outside because the programming will come back.
Yeah, always. It's a pain in the butt that we're so much like
I know.
computers,
I
right?
know.
Why
We
isn't
gotta
this
defrag
easier?
ourselves and
Yeah,
get the
right?
viruses out.
See, I'm a geek. So yes, that's exactly what we have to do. So it's interesting though, you say the power of your identity. I love that. How do you decide what to work on though? They're like, I want to be everything that's better, right? How do you decide which ones to install
Yeah.
first or what to go down, which path to go down?
So in my book, I divide my life up into 8 areas, 8 gardens: career, finances, spirituality, lifestyle, hobbies, relationships, etc. And then I usually, every week, I set a goal and I choose an area that I want to elevate myself. So it might be as simple as in my hobbies, I'm going to work on my tennis game for the next 90 days. And this week, I'm going to take 2 lessons and I'm going to work specifically on my backhand. So it's very functional. But it could also be that maybe this week, I'm also going to be more playful. So, given the opportunity, I'm going to dance or jump around or climb into my car from the passenger seat or do little things that are playful like a kid. And then I just have that consciousness up there. So, I look at it like this: your higher self, describe yourself in your optimal way. Who would you be in your best self? So, right now, I'm learning how to play. I play the drums, but I'm learning how to play the piano. And I'm playing the song Shallow from A Star Is Born. Have you heard that song?
Yes.
And it's a great song. And I've spent probably a week, an hour and a half a day, and I've pretty much got it down. So I went from not being a piano player to being a piano player that plays a song. So I've shifted my identity, but I set a goal and I knew I would have a commitment, go through the 4 stages of learning, told other people about it. So I was held accountable. And I'm now transforming to a higher version of myself, which is to be able to play the piano. And I just believe you can do that in any part of your life. In my book, I give you the 5 steps, but it's really as simple as knowing you at your lower self, which we all have, where we eat those chips and we watch Netflix and we drink and we gamble or whatever we do, to the higher self. And then saying, okay, I'll visit there, I'll rent some space, but I really want to live over here. This is the part that I'm buying, right?
How far do you need to go with so I set a goal to learn Native American flute because that's interesting, right? And I learned 6 songs and then once I hit my goal, now it sort of sits there and doesn't really do anything. So because I want to do everything, right? And I feel like we just need enough time. So how do I prioritize coming back to stuff or what goes where? Because I want to be playful too. I'm an entrepreneur that wants everything right now.
Yes. Well, there's a couple of things. Number one is I think when you journal at night, you can ask yourself a question: what do I want? What do I really want? And see if you get some clarity there. We also teach people to take this little course. I think it's a couple $100 called Sacred Gifts. A friend of mine teaches it, and it takes you through, it's the advanced kind of high level form of the DISC model or behavioral assessment, Myers-Briggs, but it deals with your God-given talents. So for instance, I have the talent which you probably have also, which is around knowledge and wisdom, which is a thirst for it. Like everywhere I go, like if you will catch me many times sitting in my living room watching a movie with pen and paper in my hand, like for the entire movie,
That's
because I'm
amazing.
looking for the one nugget of what's the lesson that I get. Oh yeah, Finding Nemo. He went from that little area out into the ocean. I could use that as a metaphor and tell people, where are you going out into the ocean? Look what happens. What are you missing? You don't know what you don't know. And I'm like, oh yes, that's so good, right? So I get excited about that because I have that thirst for knowledge. But I also have this wise counsel, which is this desire to coach and to guide people. But what I don't have is the gift of administration. So when papers come around me, they become the Bermuda Triangle. I lose. It's just incredible. I don't know how I do it. I don't eat it, but it just disappears. So that's why I have several assistants, because they set everything up for me because I have different talents. So I'd say that that'd be a great thing for you to do, is know what are your talents. And maybe you have the talent of music or you don't, but maybe you have the talents of hospitality or you don't, or craftsmanship. And then when you lean into those, like when I play the piano, oh my gosh, an hour and a half can go by and I'm in heaven. And I'm doing scales. I'm doing scales and I'm okay with it, right? So who would have known? I'm 56 years old. What did I wait so long for? So I'd say
I'm
that.
laughing hysterically because I was not made, but I took piano lessons as a kid and I just remember being like, I hate this. This is not fun. But my parents got me a piano and now I have to use it. So it's completely opposite. But that's your whole point, is you have to really find out what really gives you that flow state and do more of that, lean into more of that.
100%. You said it.
How do you know when you're in flow and when I know we've got that whole caveat of time goes to nothingness, but I feel like there's nuances to this too. Do you find nuances to flow?
Yeah, I would read The Rise of Superman is a great book that talks a lot about that. I'd say definitely time gets warped for sure. There's a sense of lightness for me where I'm not worried about things. I'm not thinking about things. I'm almost not thinking, right? I'm consciously free versus we spend so much time thinking, Jaime, as entrepreneurs. We're thinking, trying to problem solve before it happens, etc. We're in our head, and in your head, you're dead. So when you're free and you're in that heart and you're more childlike and you're more creative and playful, all those pieces, I think, contribute to it.
So I do this in painting and stuff. What's difficult for me is to try and bring it in somewhere else. I'm an overthinker. I'm such an overthinker, and I've got ADD and all sorts of craziness, right, going on. And I know it's not necessarily helpful. And when I'm working with problem solving, I love that too. But it goes down the path of worry sometimes, or it goes down contingency plan upon contingency plan, right? Do you think you can get into flow state when you're in that? Or do you feel like it has to be like the escape and out of your head piece?
No, I think you're right. I think you can be in flow state. I get in flow state sometimes when I'm looking out over the horizon, building a business and thinking, what are all the possible contingency plans and things that I prepare? And I get excited about that because I'm like, okay, as a leader of this organization, I'm going to think of everything that could possibly happen. And then when the fire burns or that crisis happens, I'm like, already, I'm ready for that. So I get excited about that as well. I think it's a really nice distinction. But I'd also say that what I'm more open to now is working on a higher level of trusting the universe, kind of like the surrender experiment or the untethered soul.
Yes.
Is how can I allow myself to be guided and be more connected with the creator so that I don't have to do all that thinking, that I'm just led to those answers, if that makes sense.
I am right there with you. I want to have Michael Singer on the podcast. So anybody that doesn't know what Untethered Soul is or Surrender Experiment, amazing books that you should check out for sure also. Let me ask you this though. You seem so passionate and so energized, just like Tony Robbins, just in general. What do you do for that? Because I'm sure the entrepreneurs listening are like, so he's different. Like he just has boundless energy. He can do everything. Of course he can get into flow state. He's not trying to deal with this, that, and the other thing like I am. So give us some tips on how we can actually do that.
So rule number 9 in my book is nothing has meaning but the meaning that you give it. And I have become a master, I believe, if I can so humbly say, is I use what's around me. The other day I was at the airport and the flight got delayed and you hear the announcement, flight's delayed 2 hours and you got to change gate. And I just watched the people because I'm a people watcher. I'm watching to see how people respond to things. And you can see people slump and people, oh no, and people start to get their phone and like, thinking about all the things that are going to cause pain in their life. I stood up and I go, yes, I wonder who I'm going to meet. And I said, there's got to be a reason for this flight delay and I'm going to make it serve me. So I get up, I start walking down the path and who do I bump into but John Assaraf.
Really?
For those, so those people that don't know John Assaraf, he was on The Secret. He's kind of like one of us. He's a guy who's into completely neuroscience and all that sort of thing. So I walked directly up to him with certainty. I'd never met him before. And I said, John, we were supposed to meet. I can't believe it happened. And he's like, we were? Well, great. And you are? And I'm like, Rock Thomas. And he goes, well, so great to meet you. Here's my 2 sons. And we started this conversation. He gave me a copy of his book. I had him on my podcast. And it was awesome. So people are like, how do you have energy? I choose, not always. I have certainly my downs and frustrations and get pissed off and disappointed. The 2 emotions I'm working on most are pissed off and disappointed because I like to think I have high standards. But for the most part, if I hit the golf ball in the woods, I'm like, yes, an opportunity to learn how to hit it out of the woods. Maybe I'll find 5 more balls there. That's cool, right? So I'm trying to say, look, can I change what just happened? No. Do I want to give up my happiness because I wished it was another way? Well, that would be stupid. Wishing, in fact, I don't even like that word wish. I think it's a useless word mostly. I can't think of really a good, maybe I wish I was with my loved one and I not wish I was with my kids for here, maybe. But even then, it's not resourceful. It's not coming from a place of possibility. It's coming from a place of wishing things were different. So how do I keep my energy up? For the most part, no matter what's happening, I'm looking for the lesson, the gift, how I can utilize that situation. And trust me, I have had plenty of situations that have not been the way I wanted them to. But I've used it as the hero's journey. If I could defy all of this, it's like Tom Brady's one of my heroes. When one of his great receivers goes down, there's this shoulder slump and walk back to the huddle and look at his coach and go, okay, we're screwed now. I'm out, man. Can't you get guys stay healthy? No. He looks at it and he goes, how do I step up? This is an opportunity for me to be a hero. I try to embody that as much as possible.
How do you train yourself? So let's say we had a guy come on the show beforehand that talked about the awareness side, right? So you're aware of your negative thoughts or your worry or whatever. And then after that fact, it seems really annoying because now you just know that you're crappy in your head, right? So from there, how do you train yourself to shift so that you are each time looking for the gift?
So you really do need to understand the steps of I think they call it trauma or shock. Is the first thing is you're in shock, a state of shock. You get a ticket, the police officer pulls you over, you have an accident, the deal doesn't go through. First thing you do is you go, I can't believe this. I was just driving to work, minding my own business, and I'm getting pulled over. Are you kidding me? 10 o'clock in the morning, you're in shock. The second thing is you get angry. The police officer comes up, you go, officer, I'm just on my way to work. I'm at 10 o'clock. I'm a good citizen. Like, are you really? Get after the guys with the drugs. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm pissed, right? So you start to do that. And you start the third stage is negotiate. So you're trying to negotiate out of it, plead with God or whoever, but you work on that. Then you get to sadness when the police officer goes, hey, listen, quiet, I'll give you another ticket. I think your plates are out of this, or you have a burnt light. And you're like, argh. And you fall into sadness when he comes back and it's $120 and points or whatever. And eventually, a day later, an hour later, a week later, a month later, you get into acceptance. So my goal is to not deny the emotion, because I think that if you push it down, you develop disease or dis-ease, is to process through it quickly. And the way I do that is ask myself this question: what's great about this? And your brain initially will say, well, there's nothing great about getting a ticket. I mean, you could have used that $120 to take your girl out for a beautiful dinner. Like, what? So you have to trick your brain. You have to go past the initial answer the average person will look at, and you go, what could be great about this? What's interesting about that, Jaime, is that the brain is a great slave and a terrible master. So if you ask it questions, it will answer. Why am I such a loser? Well, because of X, Y, Z. You pizza face. You can't speak. Why is it so easy for me to make $100,000 a year? Because you're an opportunist. You take massive action. So what could be great about this? Well, what could be great about this is it's a great warning. Maybe I was texting a little bit and not looking at the speed while I was looking at my phone. Shame on you, Rock. You should, one day that could really be serious. You know what? This is actually a gift. This is a blessing. This is a reminder that, there's things that I could do that are better. Thank you. I'm so grateful. $120 to save my life. This is amazing. It's awesome. I feel so excited and so lucky. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when I was 40 years old, I lost all my hair to alopecia. And then people thought that I was dying of cancer. And people were saying to me, are you okay? And I had clumps falling out and I was freaking out. And I used the same strategy. What's great about this? When I found out that it was an autoimmune disease and it didn't affect any other part of my body. And I said, what's great about this? And I said, well, I'll never have another bad hair day in my life. That's awesome. I don't have to use shampoo and get my hair cut. I saved money. So now I go to Massage Envy once a month and I get a massage for free thanks to alopecia. Yeah, baby. Right? So nothing has meaning but the meaning we give it. And the tool is to ask yourself what's great about this or what could be about this if your mind is not willing to be so creative and creative until you find the lesson, the silver lining, or the moment to laugh about it.
How do you get do you have a trigger to ask those internal questions? Because I love the idea of getting better internal questions. The problem is, how do you remember the questions or ask better questions?
I love the questions you're asking, by the way, because it just shows me how much work you've done in personal development, because you're peeling back a layer and peeling back a layer. A lot of people are like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But how do you actually, provoke the behavior? Which is a superb question, because sometimes I find myself not doing it. I'm like, why didn't you just go there right away? So
ding, ding,
I
ding.
think
That's why I asked the question.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think it's a muscle like anything else. and your environment will evoke it. So sometimes I don't go there, and my children or people around me go like, well, Rock, why don't you ask yourself what's great about this? I'm like, I'll tell you what's great about this, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I think that it's the habit, it's the journaling, it's the routines, it's looking back and going, oh my God, I was pissed off for 4 hours after that ticket when I could have snapped out of it right away. So at the end of the night, I asked myself, what did I learn? What did I do that was, a success? What was great? Where could I improve? It's that consciousness that people don't do. They fall asleep watching TV or looking at their phone or YouTube, and they never capture the learning. Sports team will review the video, they'll review the week, they'll the game, and the distinction, the new little thing. So I do that at the end of the days, and I think that helps me get better incrementally. Then you stack and pack that over time, and you create a new definition of yourself.
I love this. I want to have you back on the show. See, this is exactly like the little nuances of like peeling away is my favorite parts of all this, because not everybody, but lots of people that are going through personal development go through this. And it's hard to know just by reading a book to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But when I'm actually living life and having children and screaming things,
yes,
it's harder to do some of the stuff that the authors that tell you what to do say.
100%. Mm-hmm.
And thank goodness we have people like you that can admit that it's kind of tough on everybody's side. And you're allowed to get pissed sometimes too, because we're human.
Yes.
I love this.
100%.
Okay. I know we have to start wrapping up. So I'm going to ask you the last question, but I also know before I ask the last question, one of the things that you were talking about before is you run mastermind groups. Can you tell me the format? I run mastermind groups. I'm really curious on the formats and how you decided to run it.
So 6 years ago, I met a really cool guy named David Osborne, and he had some really cool friends. Long story short, we got together and we had a concept of hanging out, doing physical activities during the day because men connect better through physical activities, meditating yoga in the morning, and at nighttime talking about how we can make our lives better, success, business, health, etc., everything. And the formula worked really well. We jammed it together. We started off with men only, and it's morphed into couples and men, et cetera. And we had an entry level of millionaire status because we wanted people to be able to go on really exotic trips like Norway and Japan and things like that. So if you don't have money, you don't have time, you can't do stuff like that. But we saw that there was these people who were hungry, wanted to become, and we had, but if we were willing to share with them what we had learned and a little bit of our networks and our contacts, instead of taking 20 years like with me, or some of us millionaires lose it because we don't set up the proper infrastructure to protect it. So I started to teach people, here's how I did it, and here's how you can do it. Here's the difference between vertical income and horizontal income. If you want to write a book, then here's how you can do it. And everybody has a book in them. You want to sell product online, talk to this guy. He's really successful at it. You want to do Airbnb. This guy has a course for $1,200. I took it. I made $168,000 last year, Airbnb, my own personal house while I was traveling. Cool. Yes. So I introduced them to, your network creates your net worth. So we really have a 12-month program where we teach them self-mastery, wealth mastery, leadership, and leverage in 12 months. It's an ecosystem that keeps them in the guardrails of success. And then by the time they get to the end, they've either become a millionaire or they've had massive transformation. And they enter our graduate program, which is another 3 years, where they actually learn how to become coaches, teachers, and give back.
That's awesome. The guardrails of success. I just picture like the bumpers from bowling, right? So
I love your brain.
Now I have to ask the last question, but I love that you love my brain. This is amazing. What is one action? And I know on your area of expertise, it said taking action, which I love. And I didn't even have a chance to ask you about that. But what is one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
So when I was 8 or 9, I grew up in a house with no TV. And I would say that the thing that stuck with me is do what you fear and it will disappear. So all through my life, I've said yes to things that are scary for me, including once I was walking toward a tennis court and there was this cute girl that I thought, well, it'd be nice to ask her out on a date. But then butterflies inside, pizza face jumped up, my identity, my fear, I don't know what to say. And then I remembered, do what you fear and it will disappear. And I just started walking towards her. And then as I'm walking towards her, people started to come up. She was checking people in for tennis. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm going to ask her out. And these people are going to laugh at me. And I'm going to be embarrassed even worse. My brain was freaking out. But I do what you fear and disappear. Do what you fear and disappear. And walk up and I don't know what I'm going to say. And I get to her and I go, Bond, James Bond. And she cracks up. However, she noticed something in me that I want to invite all of your listeners to go and summon. And it's a small little word that has a big impact in all of our lives, and it's called courage. And she saw courage in me. She goes, he's an idiot, but he's a fool, but he's courageous. And that's an attractive characteristic for everybody. So I would invite people is to call on that courage and surround yourself with people that are willing to put courage in you. And you know what we call that? People that encourage you. And when you have people around you that encourage you, what they're reminding you is to take action in spite of your fear, your doubt, or your worry. And then you grow and you expand. And if you live in that place, life will be exciting.
Oh my gosh, this hits my son, my 12-year-old son told his first girl crush that he liked her yesterday. And so I know, and I'm like, I had a crush on someone for 3 years in high school and I never talked to him ever once, right? So please heed Rock's information. I wish I was more courageous. I wish, and all we can do is start now. So please heed his advice, encourage others, and really take courage for yourself. I love that. Where can we find more about you, your masterminds, everything that you're doing online?
rockthomas.com. You can go there, get a free copy of my book, The Power of Your Identity, and start to redefine yourself and take the action steps. I'll walk you through it and give you the 9 different ways to romance your higher self. And you can also go to gom1.com, learn about our mastermind, or gobundance.com and learn about our men's mastermind, and on social media everywhere, Rock Thomas.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. It was a treat.
Thank you for listening and investing in yourself with your time. I so appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be forever grateful if you would be willing to leave a rating or review in whatever app you use for your podcast. I know that's what really bumps it up in the rankings. And I would so appreciate your time, especially if you've been a long-time listener. But of course, if you like this episode and you're brand new, thank you for being here too. Have an amazing, amazing day.